It is the final day of November 2024, and it is the second to last day of Thanksgivingfest 2024, our second Thanksgivingfest that we've had. This is day 6 of 7, and Thanksgivingfest 2024 for General Peters. The set list this year, day 1, Salt 2012. Day 2, Thanksgiving at the Westons, 1992. That was an empty nest episode. Day 3, National Lampoon's Thanksgiving Family Reunion, 2003. Boy, that was a bad one. And so far, that one's the only full-length feature for General Peters. Day 4, the Thanksgiving Show, 1990. That was an episode of Going Places. Night 5 was Thanksgiving, the 10-year anniversary, 2014. And then last night's feature presentation for day 6 was the appropriately titled The Day After Thanksgiving, 1952. This is an episode of The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Now, I watch this show quite a bit, but typically I watch the episodes after Ricky's voice changes, because the episodes before that, not a big fan of. I find his character to be very annoying, especially when he's a central character in it. But there are some exceptions, like the one with John Carradine, Evening with Hamlet, and a couple others. The Odd Bolt, I think, is one, but this is definitely one exception. The day after Thanksgiving, I think I discovered this one around 2016 or 2017, and it is the perfect Thanksgiving film to watch. It's about 26 minutes total with no commercials. The perfect Thanksgiving, the Black Friday evening film to watch. Very comfort food, like really comfort food type of viewing. But this one takes place. It begins the morning after Thanksgiving Day, where the Nelson family has eaten at their aunt's house, Aunt Ellen, who presumably lives fairly close, within a fairly close distance. They were invited over to her house for Thanksgiving dinner. She didn't offer them any leftovers. They ate a lot, and they come home, and it starts with them at the breakfast table, and none of them want to eat anything because they're still full from the day before. They ate a lot. They drink orange juice, and it just takes off with Harriet talking about some recipes for Thanksgiving leftovers she sees on a little paper, and Ozzie starts talking about how much he dislikes how people continue to eat turkey after Thanksgiving Day, and they run it into the ground. He says, they should just give it up, and he's not a fan of it. And she seems to differ with this, and the kids do too. They start to talk about how they want more turkey, and they're jealous of their friend who's having it 3 times a day, and the Thorny's kid, the next door neighbor. You have Ozzie, who goes outside and expresses the same opinion to his neighbor Thorny. And by the way, anytime you see these two dorks, Ozzie and Thorny, outside talking to each other, it's one of the charms of the early episodes. It's just perfect scene chewing and unfunny. And Thorny's out there with a drumstick, this big drumstick, and there's skin hanging off of it, and he's waxing poetic about how good how much he loves the follow-up is what he calls it. The follow-up, like the next few days of eating the leftovers. He's talking about the turkey upside down cake, turkey hash, turkey croquettes, which I think is another word for like turkey cakes, like how I make bean cakes and salmon cakes. And Ozzy is expressing his dislike for all this, and why can't we just give it up after one day? But then he starts to. The more they talk about it, you can tell he's getting into it too, and he's starting to get a feel. He's starting to get kind of a little hungry, and he's starting to think about how he wants some turkey. And then a teenage, a young teenage girl comes on her bike and talks about it with him a little bit. This is kind of a strange scene. It ends up with um, Ozzy is really starting to show that he wants more leftover turkey, but he's kind of blaming. He's kind of using his kids, saying they want it, and you can tell he wants it. He takes a bite of his tie at the end of the scene. It's just really weird. And then he eventually, he's using the kids as an excuse. He goes to the butcher because they don't have any turkey in the house, and he asks to see if they have any. If the butcher has a turkey, he doesn't. He says, "Sorry, they're all gone. But I can save you a good one, a nice big one for when Christmas comes around. You can have leftovers for days after." And Ozzy goes home dejected. The butcher suggests using veal. He said, "Would you like some veal instead? You can make veal croquettes, and it tastes just like turkey." And Ozzy says, "No, the kids, they can really tell the difference." But he's really talking about himself, like he really wants turkey. And they go home, and he finds out that Harriet has made croquettes, and he thinks that she's made veal croquettes and tricked the kids into thinking it's turkey. And after the meal, she confesses to him that no, that was actually turkey. We got it from Aunt Ellen, who gave us the rest of her leftovers. And it just ends with Ozzy clearing the table, and he's taking a dish back to the sink. He takes the milk back to the refrigerator, and then he pulls. he says to Harriet, "Wow, I want some leftovers now." She says, "You can have a midnight snack, but it's only 6:30. Well, can I have some at 7 o'clock?" And so he goes into the refrigerator, kind of behind her back, and starts kind of sneaking some turkey. And the kids come in. "Hey, what are you doing?" Pull out the leftover turkey, put it on the little kitchen table. It's like a second meal, and they're all just sitting down, like grabbing little slices and like just eating it and drinking milk. It's just crazy. And it just ends with after that scene, you have the butcher comes by that night and says, "Hey, I scoured all over town. I found you a big turkey." And so he's got a full other, fresh, uncooked turkey, unknowing that Aunt Ellen had given them the leftovers. And then he goes into the living room and sees an actual live turkey with Thorny standing. It's just a stupid gag to end the TV show. So that's last night's feature presentation. The Day After Thanksgiving, 1952, starring Ozzie Nelson, who of course directed the show. He didn't act in a lot. The films that he was in, like especially in the 1940s, he was usually playing himself. Usually he was playing like a band leader, an orchestra leader, such as in a movie. There was one movie he was in with Harriet called Take It Big, 1944. But he also ended up directing the Ozzy and Harriet spinoff called Ozzy's Girls, and lasted one season, 1973, 26 episodes. It was just him and Harriet, and there was two college girls. The boys were never on the show, but I think David may have done a little directing with it. But you did have the debut acting appearance on that show by Harmon, um, Mr. Harmon, Mark Harmon. Yeah, so Mark Harmon, his Rick Nelson's brother-in-law. So he showed up on that TV show. Ozzy's Girls, an interesting show. It didn't do very well, but this also stars Harriet Nelson, who did a little more acting, kind of fiddled around with like more movies than I thought she did. Like she goes back to Follow the Fleet, 1936, with Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers. It was a musical. And she was in Take It Big, 1944, as a lead in that movie, a lead actress role. The lead male was Jack Haley, who is of course, the Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz, 1939. And she goes up to a TV movie that I never heard of until today called The First Time, 1982. Interesting cast. Jennifer Jason Leigh and Peter Barton of Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter, and Hell Night. Peter Barton and Jennifer Jason Leigh. Interesting little pairing there. So she was in that. And she ended up, her final credit was a 1989 episode of the Father Dowling Mysteries, with her and her granddaughter Tracy was a regular on that TV show. And she was also in High School USA 1984, which I'll talk more about in this video. All right, Don DeFore plays Thorny, the next door neighbor. He also goes back to the 30s. I saw him in something. I can't forget which movie. He played a catcher in a movie called Brother Rat, 1938. Brother Rat. You guys like that title? He's a catcher in that had Ronald Reagan. He was in 30 Seconds Over Tokyo, 1944. It's a big one. And he was in Rare Breed. He was a fairly big role in that movie. Rare Breed, 1984 was one of his last, I think it was his final film credit. Okay, David Nelson is in this, and David and Ricky in this have a fairly big role. They're not in it a lot, but they do play a big part in the plot. Okay, so David Nelson, who I talked about, he was in Up in Smoke, the Cheech and Chong film. He was also in High School USA, 1984. He was in his final film credit was Cry Baby, 1990, with Johnny Depp, and he was not in Search of Historical Jesus, of the Historic Jesus, 1979. That's a different David Nelson. That was the last movie before Thanksgivingfest. Okay, and then we have a very young, 11, 12-year-old Ricky Nelson in this, who was in, of course, Rio Bravo, 1958, with John Wayne, Dean Martin, Walter Brennan, Angie Dickinson, Ward Bond, etc. He was in The Wackiest Ship in the Army, 1960, a comedy with Jack Lemmon. He was in Sonic Boom, 1975, nice little underrated short film. He was in a film called Three on a Boat, Three on a Date, 1978, which I want to see. It's split into little parts on YouTube. And he was in High School USA, 1994, as the principal of the school. And that was about it. So that was the last movie before he died. So he's good in this. He's not annoying in this. So that's one reason I like this episode as an early episode of the show. The teenage girl on the bike who talks to Ozzy about turkey and Thanksgiving is played by Nancy Baker. She's about 14 in this movie. Nancy Baker was a pretty solid little actress. She was in like a couple of good MST3K sci-fi films. The Beginning of the End, 1957, with Peter Graves. I don't remember her in this. She was like a girl in a car. I'll have to look for her next time in this. But she was one of the main children or teenagers. She looks younger than she is, but she was in The Space Children in 1958. It's a good MST3K. And she was in a few westerns, such as one that I've been wanting to see, Escape from Red Rock, 1957. A very B movie western, the kind that I'd like to check out. You have the butcher, and this was played by Arthur Q. Bryan, who does a good job in a small role. And this Arthur Q. Bryan, who, if you don't know who Arthur Q. Bryan is, I didn't know who he was, and I've seen him in this episode about 7 or 8 times now. He was the voice of Elmer Fudd. That's the most known thing that Arthur Q. Bryan is known for. Aunt Ellen is, again, they don't show the Thanksgiving Day, but they do. You do see her on the phone with Harriet, so you do see a little Aunt Ellen in this talking to Harriet. Aunt Ellen is played by Ellen Corby, who's a pretty solid actress, or kind of a character actress, but she had a fairly big role in a 1950 women's prison film called Caged. Kind of interesting genre for 1950. And probably best known as being Grandma Walton on the Waltons. I think it was like Esther Walton. She was even in the subsequent TV films for the Waltons. And for those of you for Christmas Fest who will be watching the 1946 Frank Capra classic It's a Wonderful Life, look for her in the bank scene when Jimmy Stewart's character George is giving out money to loan to people after their wedding day in the little bank. Like it's the little building and loan bank. And the one guy asks for like $250 and he won't back down. And then he's just asking just enough to tide you over. And then this little kind of older woman comes up to him and says, "Can I have $17.50?" That's Miss Davis. That is the name of the character. But that's Ellen Corby. And Jimmy Stewart's character, after she says that, leans over and kisses her. And that was a impromptu thing by Jimmy Stewart. It wasn't in the script. That's why she's a little shocked during that scene. Everyone kind of laughs in the bank. That is Ellen Corby. All right, and that's all for the cast, with the exception of there was one that I added a few years ago to the cast that was not on the IMDb listing, but the live turkey who comes into the room at the very end, it does have a name. It's uncredited, but they do say it in the ending credits. They say the turkey answers to the name Esmeralda. So I've added Esmeralda playing the turkey, uncredited on the IMDb listing, and is still there. So awesome. All right, so that is last night's feature presentation for day 6 of Thanksgiving Fest 2024. Today is day 7, and we had 8 days last year. We stopped at Friday. It feels a little weird doing this into Saturday. I don't know, as we end Thanksgiving Fest, I don't know if we're going to do it the exact same way next year. I know I'm almost certain we'll have it again, but I don't know if we want to do it until Saturday. I have to talk to you guys and Andy8010 about it. But it feels okay, but because it's definitely still Thanksgiving weekend, but it feels a little weird, like watching a Thanksgiving-related movie. So late last night, I did have something come to me, and I thought, what would be like good for that? Well, what would be good for the Saturday, the closing night? What kind of film? So one thing could be what I talked about yesterday, when I started talking about maybe a memory nostalgic thing you saw on TV or at the theaters as a child or teenager or later on Thanksgiving weekend. Watch that again, even if it has nothing to do with Thanksgiving, just if it has to do with your Thanksgiving, like growing up. But the thing that I thought about last night was, I think that would be appropriate, would be something like Ordinary People. I would not watch that, but 1980. But a film like that, which takes place or has to do with Thanksgiving, but also has to do with Christmas. So kind of a carryover, kind of a crossover type of film. One that came to mind is Christmas Evil, 1980, which has to do with both. So it'd be kind of a lead into Christmas Fest, which starts tomorrow, okay, which I'll do a separate video on today. Okay, but before recording this, I had another thought that would be even more appropriate. today is rivalry day in college football. So if you have a team like rivalry day in college football is, Michigan, Ohio State. Okay, it could even be whoever Mountain Union is playing, John. So like maybe a game on TV tonight, a big um, rivalry game that's on. Like that would be, I think, an appropriate feature presentation to close out Thanksgiving Fest, because it has a lot to do with Thanksgiving. Picking a movie that's like about Thanksgiving today would seem a little, I don't know, kind of inappropriate, I think. But all right, whatever you want to do though. Another one that Eileen Jansen, the girl who played Nancy Baker in the day after Thanksgiving, that I saw today was called Black Zoo, 1963. And the movie poster is awesome. It's about a person who like owns a zoo using the animals to kill his enemies. Can you say horror fest? Wow, like that one I really want to find, and it's not available online for free, so that makes me want it even more. Black Zoo. I've never heard of that movie before. Now, that looks like a dang good and bad one, so gotta check that one out and start digging around for that. Day 7, Horror Fest 2024. Make it a good one, boys. Let me know what you are watching. I still don't know, and I will see you for the Christmas Fest preview video. Have a great day. It's a cold one here. All right, guys. Later.